Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I think it is time to have a look at the last naval suggestion from the Suggestions Past the Developers December 2023. I thought this one needed its own video because there are so many people looking forward to it and will be one of the mainstays of the Japanese tech tree for a long time. It is of course the Yamato-class battleship, the Yamato, specifically the 1945 version. We know that this vehicle is being worked on by Gaijin in good old War Thunder Mobile, and also DMM have talked about the fact that they are working on getting some information on it too, showing that it will be in the game at some point. We'll start off with its rough history. The Yamato is a nameship of the Yamato-class battleship that was completed in 1941. The name was taken from an old name of Nara Pref, and it is one of another names of Japan. Lots of Japanese warships were using other names for Japan, such as Fuso, Akitsushima, Shikishima, Yashima, Mizuho, Shinshimaru, etc. But the Yamato is the most famous of other names. The English Wikipedia actually translates it to Great Harmony, but actually there is no such meaning. There are various theories about the origin of the word Yamato, but also almost all theories say the kanji, or Yamato, was used only pronounce of kanji without regard to anything semantically, so basically the way that you would do it without adding anything to it. Project of the new capital ship was started in 1934. In that time, Japanese newer battleships were really only the Nagato-class, and other battleships were very old, so they needed to replace them. With the London Naval Treaty limiting Japanese battleships when it came to the UK and also the US too, and that meant that the Japanese wanted to overcome this problem. So the Japanese Navy decided to build battleships that were larger than the general size of the 18-inch cannons, which is what the UK and the US were working with at the time. At first, they started some projects for 20-inch and also 18-inch guns. Originally, this project was started for a next-gen battleship of the 8-8 fleet. They prohibited to call it 18-inch for secrecy, and instead called it the Type 91. Afterwards, in the order to create the experimental production of the 18-inch guns in July 1934, the IGN named it the Type 94, a 40-centimeter naval gun. Around this time, Japan was isolated by their militarism policies. Because of it, in July 1934, Prime Minister Okada decided to discard the London Naval Treaty. Because of it, in October, IJN General Staff ordered new battleships with 18-inch guns to the IJN Technical Department. The project got the design number A140, and 22 different designs were considered. Finally, design A140F5 was submitted to the Imperial setup. To camouflage the real size of the battleship, they also submitted fake destroyers and also submarines. The specification of the design A140F5 was this. The trial displacement was going to be 65,200 tons, waterline length 253 meters, max width 38.9 meters, depth of 18.667, draft of 10.4 meters, main gun of 3, triple-mounted Type 94 40cm guns, secondary would be 4 15.5cm triples, and the high-angle gun of 6 12.7cm twin guns, with 12 25mm twin guns and 4 13mm quadruples, 6 aircraft, 27 knots of speed, and a cruise range of 7,200 miles at 16 knots. The power would be 135,000 shp, and also the main engine would be 2 turbine and 2 diesel. The protection would be designed to prevent 18-inch guns at 20,000 to 30,000 meters. Design A140F5 planned to equip diesel engines, and this was the first attempt for them, so they did not really have enough experience. During the experiment, the prototype of the diesel engine had fatal problems, and they decided to cancel the A140F5. Because of it, they started to make the new plan, the F6, and it had conventional steam engines, and this plan became the Yamato-class. The number 1 ship was ordered in August 21st, 1937. It was laid down on the 4th of November 1937, and construction started. In that time, around 20 years had passed since they'd built their last battleship, so it was quite a difficult project. However, construction was progressing properly, and 6 months shorter than planned. Number 1 ship was launched on the 8th of August 1940, and named Yamato. Since then, construction was progressed, but in the October 1939, they forced to move the deadline. Furthermore, in March 41, the deadline was moved up again. At this point, scheduled completion date was the end of January 42, but the Ministry of the Navy moved up the deadline again to July. By this order, construction was significantly accelerated and even completed on the 16th of December 1941. She was deployed at the 1st Squadron of the Combined Fleet with the Nagato and also the Mutsu. On the 12th of February 1942, a flagship was changed from Nagato to Yamato, and in the 29th of March, she participated in the Battle of Midway. In this battle, she never fought and just returned to the port, and afterwards, the Japanese Navy and US Navy fought a fierce battle around the Southern Pacific, but she did not fight and did only modifications to add equipment. In December of 1943, she was joined in the BOGO operation. During this operation, Yamato transported the IGA 1st Independent Mixed Regiment to the New Island Islands. During this operation, USS Skate discovered her and attacked with the Mark 14 torpedo. In this attack, no crew were injured, but surprisingly, the 3rd main gun magazine was disabled by flooding caused by only 1 torpedo. She entered Truk Island, but the factory ship Akashi could not repair this damage, so she needed to return to the Kuri naval base. She docked and got restoration work and modification. In this modification, they removed 2 15.5cm turrets on the midship and installed additional AA guns. After modification, she moved to the southern seas and did training. After a while, on the 28th of May 1944, the Allied forces started to land operations at Bayak Island. To intercept it, Yamato, Musashi, and also the 2nd Torpedo Squadrons were dispatched in Operation Kon. But just after the Battle of the Philippine Sea, or for Japan, the Battle of Offshore of the Mariana Islands, Japanese Navy cancelled the Operation Kon, and this force joined with the 3rd Air Squadron to escort. During this battle, Yamato fired their main guns' AA shells, but they weren't noticeable results, and one of the escort targets, the aircraft carrier Hio, was sunk. The next large battle for the Yamato is the Battle of Leyte Gulf, or for Japan, the Battle for the Philippine Sea. It was the last naval battle between battleship and battleship, but Yamato could not fight against the US battleships. She was assigned with the Kurita fleet to attack enemy landing forces, but she fought against only Taffy 3, a force of escort carriers and escort destroyers for air support. It was the first opportunity for Yamato to fire the main guns of the enemy ships, but the 46cm guns could not get noticeable results. After overwhelming defeat of the Japanese, the US forces started to invade Okinawa Island. To intercept it, the Japanese Navy and Army started desperate last counterattack, Operation Kikusui. This is the largest suicide operation, and the Yamato joined part of Operation Kikusui 1, Operation Tengo. Now this operation is known as a Maritime Special Attack. She led the 2nd Fleet, the Yamato, Yahagi, Fuyutsuki, Suzutsuki, Isokaze, Hamakaze, Yikukaze, Ashashimo, Hatsushimo, and also Kasumi, and dispatched to Okinawa on the 7th of April 1945. They spent slightly less fuel oils for this operation, but they couldn't do anything. Hundreds of aircraft from 11 aircraft carriers flocked to the last fleet of the IJN and destroyed almost everything. Withstood more than 2 hours, but finally she sunk. About 3,300 crew were on board on the Yamato, but only 276 crew survived. The wreckage of the Yamato was scattered on the sea bottom of the East China Sea. Now this battle is called the Battle of Cape Bonomisaki. Afterwards, in 2199, this is a little bit of fun, the Gamillan's Empire starts to invade the Earth. Humankind formed the Earth Defense Force, but inferiority was apparent. The sea evaporates and radioactive contamination progresses, so mankind will be destructed within 1 year. At this time, one message comes from outer space. That message said that come to planet Iskander to take radioactivity removal device, and they attached a blueprint to a warp engine. This engine was mounted on a space battleship Yamato. They camouflaged the building of the new spacecraft by the wreckage of Yamato, and she dispatched to outer space to save Earth. End of the strict battles against the Gamillan's Empire, they succeed the mission and revive the Earth. Since then, she has been active in various battles. So yeah, just just a little nod to the good old space battleship Yamato anime that exists. But yeah, the Yamato was a formidable beast in the Second World War. But as all of these large, formidable beasts, they basically didn't really do too much because they were too valuable to lose. And by the time a lot of them were committed, they just didn't have a exemplary record because they were targeted so heavily because they were so valuable. So many stories of this, whether it's Italian, German, even British, and even Japanese and American, and it just is kind of sad, really. The actual stories behind these things are never as interesting as the actual machines themselves and the engineering behind them, which is why I think it's interesting to go over that part a little bit more. As always, though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.